They just don't make them like they used to, says the retro bike fanatics who gush over the bloated, underpowered, air-cooled bikes of yesteryear. I, for one, enjoy a modern motorcycle that is equipped with the latest and greatest feats of engineering, and I'm not afraid to say that, even if it triggers all the crusty cafe racer bros on the internet. But to be fair, older bikes were far more accessible. Small, simple bikes were popular, like British twin roadsters or small displacement UJMs. Anything truly powerful was deadly. Take the H2 Widowmaker, for example. Today, in a desperate attempt to earn the loyalty of financially ill-equipped moto-curious youngsters, manufacturers have begun to double dip on some of their classic motorcycle designs, aimed at competing with less expensive and approachable bikes. Since time is a flat circle, today we're talking about 5 vintage motorcycles making a big comeback. Today's video is sponsored by our friends at Rockform. Let's get into it. In 1985, the world of motorcycling was entering a metamorphosis. Sport bike technology created a new breed of Japanese motorcycle that would supersede the UJM-style bikes that the market had become accustomed to. High-revving, liquid-cooled engines would begin to outclass the lumpy, air-cooled 4-cylinders that had previously served as the placeholder for what was considered superbike engineering. Kawasaki really created a new archetype for the modern production sport bike with their GPZ 900R, the OG Ninja that would become an icon. And birthed from the loins of the Ninja was the Kawasaki Eliminator. No, not that new Eliminator, the old one. The Eliminator was an early muscle cruiser built in the style of a drag bike, but with the beating heart of a Ninja. The Eliminator 900 had all the styling cues of a muscle bike with a short bobbed fender, a low slung handlebar, and a beefy 4-cylinder engine. The Kawasaki Eliminator was differentiated from its muscle cruiser competitors like the Honda Magna or the Yamaha VMAX by its inline 4 engine configuration, which, although pulled from the Ninja, had been tuned and modified for low-end punch compared to top-end power. Despite this, the engine design was still unique for the segment compared to the V4 engines found in its rival. The Eliminator 900 was produced for only a few short years before being replaced with the Eliminator 1000, which had redefined styling cues to use the 1000cc engine found in the Kawasaki Concourse. And just as Kawasaki extended the reaches of their Ninja line with small displacement offerings, the Green Giant applied the same methodology to the Eliminator line, creating the Eliminator 750, 600, 400, and 250 models. As expected, these motorcycles utilized the engines from their corresponding Ninja counterparts, meaning from 1986 until 1994, the Eliminator 400 was built with a 4-cylinder engine from the GPZ 400R, utilized a shaft final drive like the larger Eliminators. What a strange amalgamation of characteristics to be found in a single motorcycle in comparison to today's standards. A shaft-driven cruiser with a small displacement 4-cylinder engine. That is something I will say about older bikes from the 80s and 90s. It was a fascinating time of innovation, things were still novel and unprecedented as manufacturers weaned themselves off of a decade of homogeneous UJM production. Whereas now, everyone just prints off twin-cylinder bikes to satisfy every category of motorcycling and Euro 5 emissions. And that's a perfect segue to talk about the new 2024 Kawasaki Eliminator. The present-day Eliminator still draws its design cues from the muscle cruiser heritage, though this time only being sold in a single displacement. This time around, the Eliminator is being marketed as an entry-level cruiser that uses the updated 451cc parallel twin engine from the new Ninja 500. This bike is claimed to be making 49 horsepower and 32 foot-pounds of torque, which is right on par for category with the other entry-level cruisers like the Rebel 500. Unlike the historic Eliminator, the current rendition is a pretty modern bike with a trellis frame, ABS, and has slipper clutch, and while it's not really my style, the Eliminator provides new riders an additional option from Kawasaki if they're not keen on the looks or riding style of the Ninja 500 or the Z500 Naked. And maybe it will deter people from pursuing the Vulcan S, which would be doing humanity a solid. Yeah, old bikes were cool, I won't deny that. Maybe certain things were better in the 80s. You know what? You could buy a house for like 10 grand, you could buy a bag of chips at the grocery store and you wouldn't blow your entire monthly budget. You could watch mass-marketed sitcoms ignorant to the moral shortcomings of its star cast members. But you know what the 80s didn't have? Yes, Turbo Busas, exactly. They didn't have that. I also don't have one. It's so sad. But do you know what else it didn't have? Cell phones. I don't know about you, but I love my cell phone. It never leaves my side. It sleeps in a little pillow next to my head at night. So when I started riding motorcycles, I needed to find the best way to accommodate my cell phone while riding. And luckily, I've been able to partner with Rockform. If you ride, you endure the risk that comes with that. You should get set up with Rockform. They make highly durable, drop-tested phone cases with 360 degrees of protection. With the case equipped, you can easily connect your phone to the motorcycle handlebar or one of the other mounting accessories. Worried about your phone's delicate innards? They've got a vibration dampener. Do you also drive a car? It's kind of lame, but you can get a car mount as well. Rockform is your one-stop shop for your phone gear for riders. If you click the link down below and use the code YN25, you'll get 25% off your order. Again, that is YN25 for 25% off. Seriously, I love Rockform. We've worked with them for years and it's been an absolute pleasure. I use it on my desert sled. It's a great thing. If you like what we do here and want to support the channel, check out Rockform. Now let's get back to the show. Sold alongside Honda's CB line of motorcycles from the 60s and 70s, the CL line of Scrambler style bikes were modified versions of Honda's classic UJM Roadsters built with a high swept exhaust and braced off-road style handlebars. For some models, these modifications were sold as a kit for corresponding CB models, while others held their place in Honda's lineup as their own dedicated machines. These were sold in varying displacements from 72cc's all the way up to 450cc's. The most reputable of Honda's vintage scramblers was the CL77, which used a 305cc parallel twin engine mounted up to a strengthened steel frame. It was also modified with a high swept exhaust for greater ground clearance, 19-inch front and back wheels, and an early version of semi-knobby dual sport tires. In 1962, as a marketing effort from Honda, riders Dave Ekins and Bill Robertson Jr. rode two CL72 scramblers the entire length of Mexico's Baja Peninsula. Imagine the size of the cones these men must have had nestled inside their riding trousers. To even attempt a feat on primitive machines like that is mind-boggling. It'd be like riding a Royal Enfield Meteor 350 in the Dakar Rally. This trans-Mexican journey served as the pioneering run for the Baja 1000 off-road race, which when first officially ran in 1967 was also won on a Honda CL350 Scrambler. These bikes were cool, but saw nowhere near the acclaim that the flagship CB models did. Despite the prowess of the early Honda Scramblers, the later Honda CL bikes served as more stylish exercises than anything else, which is not unlike many of the Scramblers sold today. And since the stylish neo-retro bike is all the rage today, Honda brought back the CL ideology with the SCL 500. The SCL 500 debuted as another entry point in Honda's vast catalog of approachable middleweight bikes. The SCL is powered by the same 471cc parallel twin that you find in the CBR 500R, the Rebel 500, and the CB 500X. This motorcycle is pretty straightforward. It has Honda's user-friendly approach and attitude, and it's a smooth, linear, albeit lackluster engine. The 31-inch seat height is pretty approachable as well, and it weighs 423 pounds. The SCL 500 isn't going to offer much in the way of true off-road capability, although it does have almost 6 inches of suspension travel both front and rear, and a 19-inch front tire, but truthfully, anyone who does any real off-roading or adventure riding wouldn't look in the direction of this bike anyways. The SCL is a stylish bike with retro charm, suited for someone who wants an approachable bike with a different flavor and the Honda brand cachet. In 1995, Aprilia released the RS250, a two-stroke replica race street bike to celebrate their success in Grand Prix racing. This bike was designed to mimic the appearance of their GP250 race machine. The RS250 uses a modified two-stroke engine borrowed from Suzuki's RGV250. The RS250 was making 55 horsepower and 26 foot-pounds of torque. Being a two-stroke, this power is found all the way at the tippy top at 11,000 RPM. The twin-spar frame was built for Aprilia by Benelli and used a funny-looking curved banana swing arm. The bike used fully adjustable Showa suspension and had Brembo brakes. Updates were made to the RS250 in '98, including upgrading the suspension components and modernizing the styling. Modernizing the styling in 1998 must have meant that Aprilia slapped a pair of Jinko jeans and some soap shoes on the RS250. Production was discontinued in 2002, and it wasn't until over 20 years later that Aprilia offered a true lightweight sport bike in production numbers. Not, of course, counting all those 125cc bikes that they sell overseas, but that doesn't count because that is just a Grom with fairings. 125 boys sound off in the comments section. Aprilia did sell the ultra-limited RS250 SP in 2020, but those were just one-off special edition releases. As their new flagship small displacement sport bike, Aprilia has introduced the RS457. Following the success of the RS660, this motorcycle features a 457cc parallel twin engine with 47 horsepower. So no, it's not a modern iteration of the RS250. Two strokes are very, very different, but we have to be realistic and make do with what we've got. And there's definitely something almost nostalgic about a small displacement sport bike that is as well equipped as its big bore counterparts. There is some bravado in this, the sense of novelty rarely found in the lightweight sport bike category that pays homage to a different time. Utilizing an aluminum trellis frame derived from racing experience, the RS457 boasts fully adjustable suspension with a 41mm upside-down fork in the front and a monoshock in the rear, and comes equipped with bi-bree brakes, a budget-friendly option from Brembo. And despite its modest power output, the RS457 shares technological features with its larger siblings. Weighing a claimed 350 pounds dry, which which is closer to 390-ish wet, I'm not sure. The RS457 targets track day and racing enthusiasts. Again, this isn't a recreation of the RS250, but the release of a highly equipped small displacement machine from Aprilia that harkens back to a different time. The Daytona name has been attributed to various motorcycles from Triumph dating all the way back to 1960s. The original Tiger 100R was given the Daytona moniker after being updated and sold to reflect the modified motorcycle ridden to victory by racer Buddy Elmore in the 1966 Daytona 200 in Daytona, Florida. The Daytona was pretty standard British roadster that used a 490cc air-cooled parallel twin engine. It differed from the Tiger by undergoing engine modifications that produced power up high in the rev range to better compete on the racetrack with Japanese manufacturers like Honda. The Daytona name was reintroduced in the 90s as well, when Triumph made a sport bike in varying capacities, first including 750 and 1000cc offerings. These two models were then replaced by 900 and 1200cc options. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Triumph introduced the Daytona 955i as they further tried to establish themselves in the growing Y2K sport bike market. But even while the 955i served as a market placeholder, Triumph was developing what would become one of the greatest achievements in their tenure, the Daytona 675. Introduced in 2006, the Daytona 675 marked Triumph's return to the supersport category. Powered by a 675cc inline triple, it offered a unique combination of linear power and agile handling. In 2006, the Daytona featured a distinctive under-seat exhaust, sharp fairings, and a twin-spar aluminum frame. I still think it's one of the coolest looking bikes of all time. Seriously, the Gen 1 Daytona 675R, it just looks perfect. Look at it. It's a perfect little sport bike. It's so cool. And now it's kind of a classic in of its own right. It's kind of a vintage bike. It's coming up on 20 years old. It's crazy. The Daytona 675 was renowned for its precise handling and became a popular choice for both road and track riders, including a young man named Yami Noob. Ever heard of him? The Daytona was ultimately updated and sold in the R variation as well as the Moto2 Daytona 765 before its ultimate demise, which is quite sad. But then, for 2024, since time is a flat circle and we exist in a reality of infinite time and finite combination of atoms, the Daytona is back. This time, the Daytona is not designed to be a track-shredding supersport, but a road-biased middleweight sport bike akin to bikes like the Yamaha R7 and the Aprilia RS650. The Daytona 660 uses a 3-cylinder engine pulled from the Trident 660, where it manages to squeeze out 94 horses and 54 foot-pounds of torque. The Daytona 660 has a more comfortable ergonomics package to complement its accessible power delivery. It has mostly non-adjustable Showa suspension and what looks to be no-name Triumph brakes. The Daytona 660 is a product built to meet the demands of the market, so I can't blame Triumph as much as I can blame all of you guys. This is your fault. You did this to me. You are the reason that we don't have super sports anymore. I'm just kidding. Considering most of the bikes from Triumph that have bore the Daytona name have been more street-oriented machines, maybe the new Daytona 660 is kind of more of a return to form than one would initially suspect. And to round out our video today, we have to talk about the motorcycle company who has made vintage bikes the entire business model. Of course, I'm talking about Royal Enfield. And while most of the bikes looks as they were plucked from the annals of history, from what I can tell, at least 2 current models bear the namesake of their ancestors. For 10 years, from 1952 until 1962, Royal Enfield produced the Super Meteor. This bike used a 692cc air-cooled twin that utilized many parts from their 500cc twin and 350cc single from the Bullet. Subsequently, Royal Enfield sold the Interceptor, which initially used the same 692cc twin before being built out to 736cc's. The Interceptor was continuously updated until production ended in 1970. The Interceptor, known as the INT 650 in the States due to its trademark restrictions, was re-released as one of Royal Enfield's flagship roadsters in 2018. Since then, it has been a benchmark for simplistic retro air-cooled twins, of which there are few in the marketplace. The INT 650, which has a 648cc parallel twin with a 270-degree crank. This air-cooled low-compression engine puts down a modest 47 horsepower. It's incredibly affordable for a machine built for riders who want a no-nonsense bike with vintage charm. Even more recently, Royal Enfield has brought back the Super Meteor. This bike, using the same 648cc twin from the Interceptor, eschews the cafe roadster styling that for an American cruiser. The forward controls, low-slung seat, and pulled-back handlebars all lends itself towards cruiser geometry. These bikes definitely retain more authenticity than many more motorcycles that are just recycling a given model name or serve as a vague reimagining of a bike from years past. And I think there is some value in that. At least tons of people around the world seem to think so, and if that qualifies as which these bikes are pumped out, it's any indication. Which bikes are you wanting to see come back into circulation? While I know it seems like a lot of bikes from years past are unlikely to make a resurgence, you never know. Are we ever going to see a transverse mounted turbo Honda ever again? I don't know. Thanks to Rockform for the support today, and thanks to all of you for watching. If you want to support the channel as well as get entered to win our current BMW giveaway motorcycle, it's an S1000RR with the M package, head over to yammydude.co and check out our membership options. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. Fact: crying makes you feel better, reduce stress, and may help keep the body healthy. Maybe my dad was onto something. Goodbye.
Keep watching Yammy Nerd.